We make way for Rich Eisen, the NFL Network host and host of the Rich Eisen Show on DirecTV's Audience Network. Also the host of the NFL 100 All-Time Team. That series airs Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, along with Chris Collinsworth and Bill Belichick. And the list of finalists will be revealed tonight on ESPN. Rich, good morning. What's been the most surprising reaction to the list so far?
Oh, I don't know if I've had a surprising reaction. I guess because I was expecting people to say, "Wow, that's the way Belichick is, huh?" I thought that I get that, and I knew that certain people that most would have an issue with the running backs list not having a single player who played their entire career in the 21st century on it. That the player of the running backs group of all 12 to have stepped off the field most recently was Emmitt Smith. So, and he's been in the Hall of Fame for quite some time now. So I was expecting all of that. And I don't know. I'm just thrilled that people have really gotten into it. Certainly with the show airing on a Friday night. So it was great to shoot, DP. We did it at NFL Films back in May. You know how NFL Films can do great work when they have 2 days to turn something around. They had 6 months to have this in the edit bay. So it's just been great, and I'm fired up that it's finally here.
How do you think history is going to look back on Frank Gore's career?
I think people will look back on it and saying, why isn't he in the Hall of Fame? I hope he does get in. I think he deserves it. But he wasn't on any commercials. He's not the guy that's the go-to guy by the media afterwards. He's a soft-spoken dude who just keeps going. And in the era in which the 30-something running back is supposed to be cast aside and no longer effective, he just keeps doing it. He still is the last 1,000-yard rusher for the Indianapolis Colts. And we're not even talking about the 49ers, for whom he had a 100-yard rushing and touchdown game in the Super Bowl against the Ravens in the Superdome. So it's just the guys had big games in big spots for big teams, and nobody talks about him because he's a guy who never seeks the spotlight, and the spotlight never seeks him or finds him. He just keeps ticking. He needs 1,500 yards to catch Walter Payton, which at his current clip would be maybe 2 more years, depending on which team gets him and uses him or keeps him. So it's entirely possible that it could go Emmett and Frank Gore, but right now, in terms of people who are, living members of the all-time rushing list, it's Emmett and Frank Gore right now.
Yeah, and I agree. He's a Hall of Famer. Not everybody is, we always look at the Hall of Fame and we go, well, is he as good as this guy? Like every baseball player is not as good as Babe Ruth. But that doesn't mean you're not a Hall of Famer. Frank Gore is not Barry Sanders. He's not Emmitt Smith. He's not Jim Brown. He's not Walter Payton. But that doesn't mean he can't be a Hall of Famer. We get caught up on these numbers and comparisons, and then we lose sight on what somebody accomplished. And I think Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer. And, another thing with this league, it's a copycat league, or at least it feels like that sometimes. The greatest show on turf, everybody thought, well, let's see if we can run an offense the way the Rams were running it. Now you have Lamar Jackson. Is Lamar Jackson going to create a copycat league? Are we going to start looking for Lamar Jackson in the draft because of his success when maybe we wouldn't have if he didn't have this MVP-like season?
Well, I don't know, DP. You could make a case that Lamar is the copycat. He's just the copycat of Russell Wilson, and he's the copycat of Dak. He's the copycat of, we could go on and on. Mahomes is even a guy that can run it a little bit, but obviously his no-look throws and his Roger Federer-type uncorking of a shot that you don't see coming, 60-yard passes, or overshadow the ability that he could do both. And that these guys are all eventually copycats of Vic. It's just that the issue with Lamar Jackson is it doesn't appear like he could be copycatted, that he is such a genuine article who has the ability to slice you up and with his legs, and the fact that he's the one that delivers the hit towards the end of the run too, and now we're seeing also his ability to sidearm balls through a needle, throwing receivers open that way. I mean that is next level stuff that we're not used to seeing out of a second-year quarterback, even though we did see it out of last year's MVP under those circumstances. So he's playing as well as, in my mind, as Mahomes. I mean, he won't wind up with 50 touchdown passes, but he should account for about 40 when it's all said and done. He's pushing 30, I think, in terms of touchdowns accounted for. So I think he is the guy that also has led to Kyler Murray. I mean, he might push Jalen Hurts further up the draft board this coming year, but the question is who can play like Lamar? I don't know, but that'll be certainly fun to find out. I think you're definitely seeing teams believing that this is not only a winnable format but sustainable. And John Harbaugh, man, I mean, this guy changed streams last year, Dan, in the middle of the year. Like if a Martian came down from the heavens last night, and that was the first football game that the Martian saw, and goes, oh wow, that's the way quarterbacks play. No. Quarterbacks don't play like that. As a matter of fact, let's show you the difference. We would show them footage of the guy he replaced in Joe Flacco. That's the footage we would show. And they did it midstream last year, and now with the full off season, man, it's just been dynamite to watch him. And they also racked up 260 yards rushing. It's not just his arm. I don't know how this can be copycatted.
But you also have a situation, and we went back and looked at an article a report that Ian Rappaport had. It was November 4th of last year. John Harbaugh was on the hot seat.
Yep.
And it was, if you don't make the postseason, John Harbaugh was probably going to be fired. And because he made that change and went to Lamar Jackson, and that changed the fortunes of this franchise. So, let's not make it seem like John Harbaugh was on, stable footing here. He went to Lamar Jackson. I think it was desperate times, desperate measures, and he bought in to Lamar Jackson. And as a result, he might be coach of the year and Lamar Jackson might be MVP. That's how quickly it changed.
Well, I mean, remember Coughlin was on a hot seat too, and he decided, I'm going to make a change. I guess let maybe the foot off the gas pedal within his own locker room and hand things off to his veteran players, and then suddenly, boom, he wins the Super Bowl, and then boom, he wins another one, and we're talking about him eventually. Maybe one day, should he be in the Hall of Fame? I mean, these things in that way have happened before, and I guess just to put a button on it, I should mention Kaepernick. I mean, Kaepernick is also a forerunner of Lamar Jackson, to the point where the current coordinator of the Ravens was Kaepernick's for another Harbaugh against John in the Super Bowl years ago. It really is a whole full circle situation. But again, I just don't know how Lamar Jackson can be different. And Kaepernick was that same guy in a way, where he was like an ATM, a points ATM. You put the card in, you just press run or pass, and the points and yards came out back in 2012. We're kind of seeing that again.
I mentioned the Rams issues in the first hour because they do have some issues here, and they might not make the playoffs. And I think it's only going to get worse for this team because, Gurley is not an every down back anymore. I love Donald. Do you sign up Jalen Ramsey? They have so much money that they've spent, so much of a cap hit, and with Jared Goff, no draft picks, and you're going to be moving into that new stadium. I just don't think things get better for the Rams. I think they get worse. What do you think?
Well, I think in the same way that we're talking about John Harbaugh looking inward, if you will, or looking at the pieces that he has, we'll see what McVay does. But it's hard to sit here and say that Belichick in the Super Bowl last year didn't figure out, if for the lack of a better phrase, what the Rams were doing, their special sauce that had them 1 year ago. We want to talk about 1 year ago at this time. We were talking about the death of defense after the Rams and Chiefs put up 105 points together on Monday night. And since that night, the Rams really, the offense hasn't been the same. I still believe in Sean McVay to try and figure out what can be done Les Snead's a smart guy. They have pushed all their chips to the center of the table as the Rams organization has, on Les and on Sean and on Goff and Gurley and Donald and obviously Jalen Ramsey as well. They're smart enough to try and figure out another way through potentially, but I think you're right that the sands and the hourglass in 2019 are fast running out. They're 2 behind the Vikings right now, and I don't know how they bridge that gap this year.
Rich Eisen, the Rich Eisen Show, NFL Network host, the NFL 100 all-time team. The defensive linemen and linebackers who made the team will be revealed this week. Finalists will be revealed tonight on ESPN. Great to touch base with you, Rich.
Thanksgiving, DP.
You too, buddy, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, pal.
Thank you. That's Rich Eisen.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.